Hello, thanks for being in a new video. This time we have first impressions of Galaxy S26 and Galaxy S26 Plus. Let's get started. I believe both devices will be a slight evolution from the last generation. There are changes I'll discuss here, but the Ultra model is where Samsung focused on major updates. My first impressions video on the Galaxy S26 Ultra is available for you to watch. Let's start with the design. The thickness of these phones is 7.2mm and 7.3mm respectively. This means Samsung has finally halted the trend of making their phones thinner and thinner. Regarding weight, the Plus model still weighs 190 grams, while the base model has increased by 5 grams, now weighing 167. You will notice later that there has been a minor change in the battery. However, the truth is that these devices are still very similar to the previous generation. In both cases, they retain aluminum, keep the finish of straight lines, and premiere this new design for the camera module, retaking the line of the Galaxy Z Fold 7 with a capsule. The truth is that it looks very nice. In terms of aesthetics, I really liked it. In this case, it does not have privacy display that we do see in the Galaxy S26 Ultra. So if you want to enjoy that privacy feature, it will only be available on the Ultra model. Let me go ahead and tell you more about the screen specifications for both models. Both feature dynamic AMOLED 2X technology, and they both have a refresh rate ranging from 1 to 120 Hz. The screen sizes are 6.3 inches and 6.7 inches respectively. So we notice a slight difference there, which also affects the pixel density. Moreover, the Plus model offers Quad HD resolution, whereas the base model provides full HD resolution. However, these are simply data points that will naturally fluctuate due to the screen sizes, yet both screens are expected to be highly detailed. We do notice that the Plus model still boasts a higher resolution. Both models maintain stereo sound. Of course, there is no headphone jack present. They both have the same front camera, which is 12 megapixels with an aperture of f2.2 and autofocus. It's a front-facing camera that is quite good, but it hasn't experienced much evolution recently. However, it seems that they will have a bit more width when compared to the previous generation. There you are looking at some photos just as a simple example here indoors. Obviously, we will conduct a much more detailed analysis later on, but this camera was already quite impressive. Naturally, we'd have liked to see the incorporation of the square sensor found on the iPhone, which allows for a much wider framing or the ability to record horizontally while holding the device vertically. Unfortunately, that feature is not present here. Speaking of the rear system, the truth is that I don't have good news for you because it has the same as the last generation. In fact, it's not even the same, it's a step backwards. The 3X telephoto camera actually has a slightly smaller sensor, slight difference, but at the end of the day, it is a smaller sensor in overall size, although it keeps the same 10 megapixel resolution, and in this case, the same aperture also with f2.4. The primary camera features a resolution of 50 megapixels with an aperture of f1.8, while the ultra-wide camera offers 12 megapixels with an aperture of f2.2. As a result, there isn't much new at the camera level. For instance, if you own the Galaxy S23 and believe that camera meets your needs, you'll find a similar experience here. However, if you're seeking more, this won't satisfy you. In my opinion, there are other manufacturers offering more appealing options. For example, the Vivo X300 is a compact device with a brutal camera. In terms of photos, I think that Samsung has remained quite stagnant, but it is for the most demanding in photography. If you are not so demanding in photography, you could enjoy this device. But it must be said, manufacturers like Oppo, Vivo, even Xiaomi are doing much more attractive things in terms of cameras. Of course, we cannot omit mentioning Huawei. At the level of photography, I believe it will continue to fall short, just like in many past generations where we didn't see much evolution in camera technology. I think Samsung is definitely here, and that is disappointing many fans of photography. However, well, when it comes to videos, it does reach up to 8K or 4K at 60 frames per second. It's important to note that unlike the Ultra model, these models don't offer 4K at 120 frames per second. This might leave those who are more demanding about cameras and video recording a bit unsatisfied. However, fortunately, the horizon stabilization feature that first appeared on the Ultra is also being introduced on these models now. This feature could be received with the SUM. In previous generations, updates will rely on Samsung, as they will definitely use data from the gyroscope, accelerometer, and other sensors that theoretically could have been received in older models. Additionally, I just observed an improvement which is, of course, also enhanced in the Galaxy S26. Ultra, but I didn't mention in that video, The dual recording system was already good, allowing 4K, but it didn't allow us to switch smoothly between the cameras by manipulating the zoom. Now we have it. That's great news. Hopefully, previous versions will get this update too. So what we can observe is the improved auto-framing feature that is based on 8K technology, which allows for a 4K final output by cropping the sensor. In my opinion, it seems to have undergone some subtle enhancements at the software level. However, it's quite clear that the experience at the hardware level has become quite restricted and limited. When it comes to batteries, the base model achieves a capacity of 4,300 mAh, whereas the Plus model reaches up to 4,900 mAh. In other areas, Samsung has not experienced a significant evolution. While the base model has seen some slight improvements, it's not an area where Samsung can really show off much strength or muscle, particularly regarding capacity. When it comes to the final result and optimization, Samsung generally delivers a decent performance, but we will examine this further in the tests conducted during the video review. Regarding the charging speed, in this instance we are still finding 25 watts for the base model, which is quite unacceptable. The Galaxy S26 barely offers faster charging capabilities, so it is hard to accept that this model still lacks support for 45 watts. For some reason, Samsung remains stuck on this aspect. At least the Plus model supports 45 watts, yet it misses out on the 60 watts that the Ultra model offers. So again, there are aspects where these models might disappoint a bit. Honestly, I wouldn't recommend buying them now. It's better to get the previous models, which likely have a substantial discount now. Regarding the software, they will of course introduce the same features that debuted with the Ultra model. So I encourage you to check out that video to learn about features like Photo Assist, which includes editing through text prompts. Additionally, there's Creative Studio, an enhanced audio eraser, and a screenshot organizer. Moreover, the Now Notch Now Brief function has been improved along with conversational Bixby. The Galaxy is now capable of handling your calls, and together with Google they introduce a more intelligent Gemini that acts as an agent to control your device. So those features are remarkably advanced, although they might eventually reach more Android devices since they are not developed by Samsung but directly by Google. Finally, let's talk about the performance issue, because in this case we have Exynos confirmed. We are talking about Exynos 2600, a processor built in a 2nm process. This is very important because I know that Exynos does not have a very good reputation, but it is one of the first processors in cell phones to see this development process that should be more efficient, more powerful, and with advanced improvements. It needs real-life testing for heating and more, but on paper it seems like a good processor. However, this must be confirmed. As Exynos sometimes has weak points in games despite good ray tracing, they might not be well optimized. We'll see in the video review when we analyze its features in detail. For now, let me tell you about the prices and availability. We begin with the small model in its most basic version, which comes with 12 and 256 GB. The price announced for Mexico is 22,499 pesos. However, during the pre-sale stage, it will have a discount, dropping to 20,999 pesos. The model with 512 GB will increase to 27,499 pesos, but during the pre-sale promotion, it will be available at the same price as the base model, which is 22,499 pesos. As for the Plus model, in its most basic configuration, it has an announced price of 28,499 pesos. This, curiously, is the only model that does not have a launch promotion. The promotion applies to the 512 GB model, which has an announced launch price of 33,499 pesos. And by promotion, this configuration would have the same price of the base configuration, that is 8,499 pesos. They are quite expensive devices. If you want to buy them, in the description I leave the official links to the Samsung store, where they offer you up to 24 months interest-free with participating cards and even multiply by 10 the rewards in Samsung rewards points. If you want to use that too, and if I get you some coupons, I leave them here in the description in case you want to use them, although I already told you. I would wait for them to drop in price or buy the last generation, which is really very similar. But well, I hope you liked this video. For the moment, we have reached the end. If you liked it, you can tell us, and we'll see you next time.